Folks, this is Book Talk with Corbin. I'm your host. We have a returning guest, our friend, good friend of the show. I refer to him as Brother John. Brother, you're running for office now. What district that you're running for?
Yes, sir. I'm running for state legislature in District 36, which is Eastern Jefferson County, kind of from Jeffersontown to Middletown out east to the county line.
And
Uh,
that you're replacing Brother
Jerry,
Jerry Miller.
Jerry Miller. That's
Yeah,
right. Yeah, Jerry's retiring after many years of public service. So
yeah.
I've lived in this area for the last 35 years, basically my whole adult life, and
Mhm.
just want to make sure we get our values represented in the legislature.
There you go. There you go. And one thing I want to say to my listeners, one reason why I really love bringing on this brother is because he sort of strikes me as like the way the founding fathers were. They just weren't some jack legs who just stood up there and so well yeah I like this and I vote against this. They were like philosophers. They had these ideas. They had strong, powerful ideas, and they just didn't say things to be saying things. There's some really deep thought behind it, and so that's why I like talking to this brother because he doesn't just stand up and just whatever. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's defund the police. Let's men are women and women are men. No, when he says something, folks, really need to listen to him and ask him questions. You can find there's some deep rivers there. It's a deep river there. So, brother, one reason why I wanted to bring you on is to talk to you a little bit about the Board of Education. Brother, I
Right?
heard they have a budget of 1.8 billion. Is that accurate?
I believe so. I don't have the exact figure, but it is much larger than the entire city of Louisville, Jefferson County, and it goes up every year. In fact, they can grow that budget by raising your taxes up to 4% every year without getting any legislative approval whatsoever. So
Whoa,
it's
whoa, whoa. Wait a minute. You mean to tell me, wait a minute now, the Board of Education, about what, seven people in the Board of Education?
seven people. Yep, they're elected for 4-year terms. It's a part-time job.
And they can just, hey, we're going to raise property taxes 4% because we need some more money.
That is correct. And there's a statute that's been in place for many years. It gives school boards the authority to raise taxes. It gets slightly modified every few years, but basically the statutory requirement is they can raise property taxes by up to 4% without getting any special approval from the legislature or the taxpayers. So it's like an automatic 4% inflation rate. And I'm guessing that our incomes have not all been going up 4% a year. And, so it can take
Right.
a bite out of people, especially people that are on a fixed income, people that are paying. It's primarily property taxes in Louisville, and so as the valuation on your house goes up, people get on past age 65, they're not making a whole lot more money, but their taxes are going to keep going up and up and up with no end in sight. And unfortunately, in addition to that big price tag, we should be getting a premium product. They spend almost $18,000 a year per student to educate them in Jefferson County, which would get you a fine private school education at any of the successful private schools in Jefferson County. But instead, we get results where something like a third of the kids are functionally illiterate. And we
Mm.
know from statistics that if you cannot read by entry into fourth grade, that your chances of becoming incarcerated are greater than your chances of becoming employed after high school. And that's a tragedy. That's a generational tragedy we're putting on children. And, we're getting effectively worse and not better with these poor results. And we have got to turn this around. And I don't think having the taxpayers pay 4% more every year for a product of low quality with no accountability is the way to go.
Brother, you had, before we did the interview, and actually I've heard this from other people as well, that, like you said, it's up to 4%, they just automatically do it. If it's over 4%, then they have to go somewhere to get special approval for that, or how does that work? Am I getting this right?
Yes, you are. The law that was in place up until this year is that if they wanted to go more than 4%, that the taxpayers could have a signature drive and get signatures on a petition and put a referendum on the ballot every November to vote that up or down. Well, they tried to raise the taxes 9% last year. A local group formed, nonprofit organization called Axe the Tax, got in excess of 40,000 signatures, more than required. But JCPS spent our tax dollars to hire a squadron of lawyers to fight back and disallow some of those signatures, fight it in court. And even though the measure got put on the ballot properly, the court decreed that the votes couldn't be counted. So that is still up for appeal. It's not quite settled yet, but that if that goes through, they would have the ability last year to raise taxes by 9%. So that action made some people mad, some friends of mine mad, which I'm glad about. Representative Kevin Bratcher, Representative Jerry Miller, Jason Nemus, and Russell Weber co-sponsored a bill in 2020. It was a House Bill 133, and it said you only need to get 5,000 signatures to put the referendum on the ballot. So that's what was in place this year. And lo and behold, the school board came out and didn't ask for 9%. They said they thought 4% would get them done because they didn't want to go face 5,000 angry voters and have that referendum put on the ballot and get shot down. So I think some effective measures have been taken to control that growth in the future. But it's a shame that the school board and the Jefferson County Public Schools that are supposed to be educating our students and taking care of the taxpayers would spend our tax dollars to fight the lawyers, with lawyers to try to fight the voters on putting that sort of thing on the ballot. They don't want us to have a vote on it. They want automatic approval for the increased money.
You know, brother, there is a special arrogance and arrogance about that. I mean, here it is. I'm using your money. I'm taxing your property. I'm getting your money.
Right.
And then when you say, you know what, I'd rather not take that kind of hike right now. And then I say, oh, no, yes, you will. I'll hire some attorneys and make it happen. I don't know if, I'm not real good with vocabulary, but that's a special type of arrogance right there.
Well, I agree with you. That's unaccountable government. The government needs to be accountable to the taxpayers. This nation, we formed a government of, by, and for the people. And this is a group that is not being responsive to the people. And I think we need to clip their wings in some fashion.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're talking about a 1.8 billion, 1.5 billion, even if it's just 1 billion. I mean, the lowest number I've heard was 1.5 billion. Most conservative number I heard was 1.5 billion. Even if it's 1 billion, what kind of results are you producing? You're saying they're producing bad results. What are some examples you'd give on that?
Well, I think, I don't have the statistics on the tip of my tongue, but I believe we've got somewhere around a third of the students that cannot read functionally. Something like 40-45% are performing below grade level in reading and math. And the bulk of the failing schools in the Commonwealth are actually in Jefferson County, in the biggest, best funded school district. We got little school districts out in rural counties that do way better than Jefferson County does on significantly less expenditures per student.
Well, I do know that JCPS, Jefferson County Public Schools, put out a stat, and they said 2018, 2019, that black youth on the elementary school were not only about 27% were at grade level as far as reading was concerned. 27%.
27%, yeah. There's a huge gap between black and white performance, which personally I think is a violation of the Equal Protection Clause in the 14th Amendment. And a lot of those underprivileged youth, especially youth of color, don't have any option. If you're in West Louisville, you can go to your failing neighborhood school, or you can get bused a half an hour away where your mother can't come to your events and recitals or talk to your teacher, and you go to school there, but you can't go to private school because there is only one small private school in the West End. I think maybe another one just started, but there are not a lot of educational opportunities in the private school or parochial school arena in the West End. There used to be, but they one by one shut down. And the Jefferson County Board of Education is vigorously opposed to any kind of competition, be it charter schools, private schools, school choice scholarships. they don't want any competition. So they want a whole bunch of money. They want to raise your taxes 4% every year. They're delivering poor results. They don't want any accountability. They don't want any competition. And I think that's an entity that needs the taxpayers, the citizens need to push back on it.
Well, that's being a monopoly, isn't it? I mean, I would love to be in that position. Hey, I'm the
Yeah,
only one who can sell soap, and if
right.
you try to sell soap, I'm gonna wipe you out. I mean, that's just a monopoly.
It absolutely is. So the legislature last year put a little bit of a dent in that. You may have heard about this. It was a House Bill 563,
Okay.
created something called education opportunity accounts. And what that does is it allows individuals, philanthropists, to donate money to an educational choice scholarship account. And it can be statewide total up to $25 million. For
Mm.
that donation, they get a tax credit on their state income taxes. A scholarship granting organization can then select students based on need and some other factors and give them educational choice scholarship money that they can use to pay for tutors. They could pay for private school. They could pay for parochial school,
Mm.
literacy training, whatever it is they need. And I hope to see that grow in future years. $25 million is a drop in the bucket compared to what we spend in this state. We spend well in excess of $5 billion on education in this state,
Mm.
but it's a start. And it's the Board of Education, the whole KEA pushed back on that very hard because they did not want competition. Because surveys show in other states where there is competition, the charter schools and private schools vastly outshine the public schools.
Mm.
But competition is what makes us better.
Right. Right.
And,
So Adam Smith was making some sense. He just wasn't blown in the wind, was he,
yeah,
brother?
right, right. I'm sure a lot of us played sports growing up and, grade school and junior high. And if there was a kid that wanted your position and was willing to run a little faster, well, what'd you do? You didn't go sit on the bench. You tried to run a little faster to,
Right.
keep your position. And I think that's what we need out of our school systems.
Right. Yeah. Free
Good,
market
good work.
works. And you say this was House Bill 563, and this is done. This has been passed, right?
It's done and passed. Yes, sir.
And
And
the money is coming. Is it coming from the state? Is it coming from the government, or is it where's the money coming from?
it's actually coming from individuals that donate to a education choice scholarship organization, and they can then get a tax credit on their Kentucky state taxes.
Wow.
So it's kind of a donor directed, if you will, but the root of it is private funds. Somebody has to make that donation out of their own funds, as opposed to just claiming tax dollars.
Wow. That's hard to argue against. I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly.
that's a good thing. So how can a parent take advantage of that? Should they contact somebody like you and you say, well, here's where you go apply, or what?
I'm not sure I can answer that question today because I think they're just putting together the procedures and starting to
Okay.
collect the money, and there will be scholarship granting organizations that will make their presence known that people can apply to.
Okay, great, great. But if we
So,
get like on your newsletter, you would probably put it in your newsletter and let
yeah,
people
yeah,
know.
sure will. I'll put
Okay.
that out.
All right, all right. And if you could right now tell us, your website and your email address so that people can be in touch with you, but not just this issue, but just other issues. Period.
Sure. Yeah, my email address is hodgsonforkentucky at Gmail. It's HODGSON, the
Mhm.
number 4KY at gmail.com. And that is also my website is Hodgson, the number 4KY.com. And happy to talk to anybody about any of these issues that are of concern. But I think we as the citizens and we as the taxpayers, we need to hold the school board accountable. Um, did you know that in 2022, there are 4 out of those 7 school board members that are up for election? And
No.
virtually any citizen that graduated from high school can run for those positions. I think the pay is minimal. It's like $15 a meeting, so it is a part-time job. You meet on a regular basis. You consider important issues. You're going to get together and spend $1.8 billion. You're going to set school policy, but anybody can run for these positions. You have to be inside the geographic district that's up, but I think districts 1, 3, 5, and 6 are up next year. That's Porter, Craig, Duncan, and Shull.
Hmm.
I think those people need some competition. I think they need representatives of parents. They need representatives of taxpayers in there. This has been a one-sided argument.
Right.
Uh, most of these successful school board candidates are funded by the teachers union.
Mm.
So it's kind of a situation of the fox guarding the hen house, as you will.
Right.
But there's a whole lot more parents out there than there are teachers, and there's a whole lot more taxpayers even than there are parents. My children are grown and gone, but I'm still paying education taxes.
There you go.
And I pay them with the hopes that the next generation will get educated, learn how to read and write, and be able to be gainfully employed in Kentucky, so we can keep growing our economy.
Right. I one time, this was years ago, I met, I think it was Greater Louisville Inc. or Greater Louisville Institute, something like that. And he was saying to me, we were talking, going back and forth about business in Louisville and Commonwealth of Kentucky. And he said, do you know what the biggest objection we receive, as far as successful companies coming into Louisville and Kentucky are, what the biggest thing they say? And they said, oh, well, is it taxes? He said, no. I said, was it cost of living? He said, oh, no, absolutely not. I said, so what is it? I was really intrigued at that point. He said, education. We need a larger population of educated workers. And if we get that, we'll have more companies.
Yep.
Go ahead, brother.
I was going to say, I've seen that for years. When I worked in state government, we were trying to attract companies, and that lack of readily available trained workforce was crippling for us. We had a lot of people, but not a lot of people that could show up for work on time with the job skills necessary. And I think we've seen an erosion of entry-level type jobs. I mean, I started working when I was 14 or so. You probably did too.
13.
Yeah. 13. Yeah. Working hot jobs, mowing grass, babysitting, whatever. And when you're old enough to get a job for a paycheck. And
right.
I don't see a lot of kids doing that anymore. So by the time they get out of high school, they don't really have a whole lot of job experience. And if they didn't pay much attention, they just got passed along, and they're barely literate. They haven't learned that habit of getting up early, showing up for work on time, showing up for work sober, and work. It's going to be very hard for them to stay employed. Now, let me tell you what, if you have just a little bit of education beyond high school, some kind of a technical certificate and a variety of things that could take you just a matter of months to get, you are almost instantly employable in Kentucky. Certainly anything in the technical fields, anything in the construction fields, medical fields, welding, you're almost instantly employable if you've got a certification in one of those things. You don't need a college degree. You need tech school, trade school will get you there. And in fact, in Kentucky, due to educational choice scholarships, that type of education is almost free to you. Your first credential, I believe, is free when you go pursue it in junior college. But nonetheless, we have more people sitting on the sidelines. So we have more job openings than we have people sitting on the sidelines unemployed. But you can't match up the people with the job openings unless they're willing to show up on time and sober with the skills necessary to do the job.
Right.
And,
right.
And unfortunately, the $8 an hour jobs for unskilled people are just not real desirable, and there's not as many of those available. You need people that can read and write. Even if you're going to start out, waiting tables at your local restaurant, you still have to be able to read and write and figure out the bill and that sort of thing.
Yes. Brother, man, it just bothers me so much. But thank God we got people like you who are going into public service. I mean, some of this just seems common sense. Hey, we need to focus on teaching young people how to read. Need to focus on teaching young people how to write. Just this basic stuff. And yet, I'm hearing about woke math. I actually heard from one parent who told me how her child, she was like 8, 9 years old, and they were asking her, demanding from her, what is your preferred pronoun?
Yeah, it's crazy.
And I'm like, I'm not getting this. Connect the dots here. Help me out here, because down the road, that child's going to need, like you said, read, write, character, discipline. Not woke math, not preferred pronouns, not, diversity training. I mean, what? Hey.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm off base there, brother. What do you think?
I think you're 100% on base, and that's another problem with our government education system. The federal government gives us over $1 billion every year in Kentucky for our education system. Our state funds are about $5 billion to go into that. But with that $1 billion in federal funds comes some strings. They have certain agendas that they want you to promote, certain things like what you're talking about there, and people tend to go along with that. School boards go along with that. They have the power to make curriculum different, to police that sort of thing at the local school curriculum committees, but they hardly ever do. And the educational establishment is teaching our kids a dangerous cocktail of self-love and Marxism and oversensitivity and things that you and I didn't get when we were growing up. We understood that if you want to have a good life in America, you need to stay in school, get a job, work hard, get married, have some kids. It's a pretty basic formula. And,
right. Right.
95% of the time, if you do those things, you will be relatively successful. Your chances of living in poverty if you stay in school, get a job, and get married before you have children are almost zero.
Yes.
And it's not complicated, but we're teaching kids the opposite of that. We're teaching them to take offense at everything, to be oversensitive, to change the meaning of words, to change the definition of things that are just obvious in nature.
Right.
What's a boy and what's a girl? And I don't have any children in school right now, but I'll have grandchildren someday. I don't want them learning that stuff. I want them learning 2 + 2 = 4, and how to spell, and how to read a book, and how to perform on a job, how to show up on time, how to have some honesty and accountability. And that is not the purpose of public education, and it's been hijacked by leftists to try to change the next generation. We've got to take it back. And if we can't take it back into public schools, and what do we need? We need charter schools. We need private schools. We need parochial schools. It needs to be genuine competition so parents and taxpayers can send their kids somewhere else. I firmly believe that $17,000 or $18,000 per student that we spend should follow the student to the school of the parent's choice. Wherever you want to send them, those tax dollars are portable and go with you. And that is vigorously opposed by the education establishment. Again, they don't want that competition, and I think that is potentially our salvation. With that competition will become increased performance.
Amen. Brother, I'm going to need to stop this. Let me just say this to my listeners. This is Book Talk with Corbin. I'm your host. My web address is booktalkwithcorbin.com. I'm speaking with my brother John here. We have spoken with him a couple of times before. Please go to my website and search for his other 2 interviews. It's very, very important. And I particularly want to say this to Kentucky parents. Folks, this is nothing to play with. Your child's education, your child's future. And I'm going to be very selfish. I'm going to be very selfish in saying this. Daggone it, I want more of our Kentucky youth ready to work. I want them ready to be able to start businesses. I want them ready to work, whether it be in the trades, whether it be in the professions, whether they want to start a restaurant, whether they want to start whatever company. I want them ready to do that. And this has nothing to do with color. I don't know where all this diversity, equity stuff comes from. I don't know their justification for it. My attitude is this. Can you read? Can you write at grade level? We don't need to be graduating functional illiterates. No, we don't need that. And let me get off my soapbox, man.
You and I are on the same page.
Brother, I want to thank you again for this opportunity, and hopefully we'll be able to connect again sometime in the future.
Always a pleasure talking to you, Corbin. You're an educated man, and I think you're doing great things in our community.
Thank you, brother.
All right. We'll talk again soon.
You bet.